Stand clear.
100% Wild Podcast.
So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dreary Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast, another special Longbeards Legends series. I'm Tim Chelsvik.
I'm Matt Drury.
I'm Ray I.
Hey, we got a special guest in house again.
We do, yeah. We got Ray co-hosting again with us, which has been awesome.
So just a quick recap. We've gone through, several of the phases. I think we've gone through 3 different phases of the turkey timeline.
This will be phase
according
4.
to Ray. Yeah, We're going to get into phase 4 here. And we've had some great guests so far. I think we've had Chris Kirby, we've had Ernie, we've had
Ron Jolly.
Yep. And then today, we got a special guest that's near and dear to the Drury Outdoors family, I'm sure, as well as to Ray.
Yeah, probably the most beloved guy in the outdoor space, Mr. Mossy Oak. We've got Cuz Strickland.
Hey, Cuz, how's it going, man?
Look, I'm humbled to be here. I told you guys up front, I feel a little silly letting Ray I ask me turkey questions when I should be asking Ray I turkey questions, because we've all learned from him. And when we get to story time, I got a couple of Ray I stories I want to share that kind of shape things. But hey, it is so humbling to be invited on anything with the Drurys. You guys constantly set the bar. I'm glad to be relevant enough to be here. It's a little humbling, to be honest.
Off air, I said, heck, relevant enough. We should be asking to be on your podcast more. Your podcast has really struck a chord with a lot of people, and you were sharing a story with us off air. Real quick, share the story about that young man that came up to you at the NWTF.
Yeah, it's the first thing WTF where I didn't get all these stories about. I saw you in your long underwear pulling the deer out of the water, the truth. Every person that came up was talking about the podcast, and I was like blown away. This kid comes up. I'm guessing he was 10 or 11, and he walked up and he said, "Mr. Cuz, I love your podcast." And I'm like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, what do you like about it?" He said, "I love those hunting stories. I ain't got any yet." And I really thought I was going to start crying. I was like, if you don't think people are listening, or you don't think it's that impactful, but I guess it is, and people love stories, and Ray I and me, we love telling stories. I can tell you that. He's good at it, and I guess I am too. So that was humbling.
That is an interesting part of it. I mean, you have to, Ray's been the communicator of the year for NWTF. Like, you have to have a certain gift to, not only do you have these stories and memories to look back on, but to retell them and remember them, and tell them with a little bit of, pizzazz, so to speak. I mean, that's what draws people to certain communicators.
Well, and that's also,
we share that award. It's the only one, because he actually has awards from calling contests, which I never got. I finished. I told you my big calling contest thing. I beat one guy in the big contest, a 70-year-old guy with a box call, and I beat him by 1 point. We do share one trophy, and it's the communicator of the year.
That's right. That's right.
It's always been one of those.
And well deserved for both of you.
It's good we got both you guys on, because you can keep each other honest. Because over the years, I'm sure those stories tend to grow a little bit and change. And
Well, you touched on something.
The better I was.
Yeah, you touched on something there, Cuz, about the calling aspect of it, and a competition calling. A lot of the guys that we've had on, or several of them so far, were tied in and keyed into that calling circuit. And there's so much more to what, I guess, these legends and, what we're terming legends and the guys that really help shape the industry. There's so much more to that. And so on your side of it, the Truth series, the video series, I mean, the TV shows, all the stuff in the early days really set the tone for our industry. And I look forward to diving into that. But first, we should probably jump in to the turkey timeline, Tim.
Yeah, so it's brought to you by the all-new Finisher series turkey vest apparel and accessories from Blocker Outdoors. Built specifically for avid turkey hunters, the Finisher Turkey Series takes the quality apparel Blocker is known for and adds crucial features to help you focus on the hunt and not your gear.
Real quick on that gear, it's in 2 patterns: bottomland an obsession.
Are there any others?
That's right. When it comes to the turkey woods, there are no others. So, all right, Ray, we're into this fourth phase of the turkey timeline. Take us through what it is and what's happening during this phase.
It's what all turkey hunting, spring turkey hunting is judged by when most of the hens are on the nest. We're in that phase now where the breeding's been taking place now. Like I said in earlier podcasts, it all doesn't happen just at one time. It overlaps somewhat. But hens go to the nest, they leave the gobbler and they go to the nest, and gobblers are looking for hens. And this is how most all spring turkey hunting around the country has been judged for generations, where you do the yelp and the cluck and you call from hen to the gobbler to call the gobbler to you because he's looking for hens. So that's a really, but that's a little short window. It's a narrow window. So that's why we talked about the other phases. We got to do other tactics in and on both sides of this hens on the nest. But very, very critical time, a good time to be out there when there's a lot of gobbling. They're in that second big phase of gobbling. They're going crazy out there looking for the girls. So it's a good time to be a turkey hunter when you want to kill a gobbler, is when the hens are on the nest.
How long would you say this phase lasts in terms of days?
I don't know if I could put it into days. Could you put it into days? Because I don't think I could put that into days. It overlaps.
But, I'm 25 to 30 days.
Yeah.
Is when they're trying to hatch those things.
Right.
The eggs and it depends on so much because so many now, especially nowadays, so many of the nests get raided by nest raiders, and the biologists say they'll start over and they'll try it again. I heard a turkey gobble really good and strut one time in June down here, and it's 90 degrees by then. So but basically it's supposed to happen. Kind of the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. God rest his soul, Bob Dixon, he used to say all the time, if you had to, we ask questions to different people, and I ask him, if you had to hunt the first half of the season or the second half, which would you go with? Second half. And you'd also say, would you rather hunt morning till noon or noon till dark, which we can hunt all day here? And he would always say noon to dark, because that's the time to kill them. That opening week, I just went through that down here, youth season, and it was cold, and it was like deer season, and it's always vastly disappointing because you've been waiting all year. And we heard one turkey gobble once and one way off gobble twice. It was 28 degrees. Man, that part when the hens are nesting, that's when it heats up. That's when you get those stories about, man, that turkey gobbled 100 times. Because when they're all together, flocked up like that, they just don't have to. And so I think that last 2 to 3 weeks of our season, it opens mid-March and runs to the end of April. That's way different from you guys up north.
Yeah.
But usually down here by the end, the last 2 weeks, most of the people have thrown in the towel. It's got way too hot. Snakes are out. That's a biggie with me right there. Mosquitoes, they've taken off as many days as they can. So I really, really, really look forward to those last 2 weeks. And that's what's going on. That they may roost together and fly down. The hens disappear quicker, and that's what they're doing. They're on that nest. And he's looking around, strutting, going, ain't nobody around. That's the best time to strike one. So I think it's the last couple of weeks. 20 days, 25 days, something like that.
So what are your tactics during that period, Cuz, to try to be successful?
To me, and boy, it gets complicated and, people arguing. That's when I try to cover as much ground as possible. Like this past Saturday or whenever it was, it was Monday, I took the kids up, 2 of the grandkids up, and it was a beautiful place. I know it's awesome. We only heard one turkey. Well, I said, I know they're here. Let's just sit. And because when they're not responding and the hens ain't yipping, you're not going to do anything but bump and disturb and pose and all that. So I'm despite what others say, I'm pretty patient early in the season. That late part, I'm convinced in my mind I can find one with his window open. And it's all about them having their window open. So I want to cover ground and make sure I get close enough for him to hear me, especially that mid-morning.
Yes,
sir. I want to, and I do things a little bit different, but I want to cover as much ground as I can. Most of the places I get permission on are maybe I can't go there the first couple of weeks. Kids are hunting their family, but I have more spots open up there, and I want to hit them all because I feel like there's one there with his window open. You got to get a little closer that time of year. That foliage is out everywhere. You know, it's harder to hear because of the foliage and all that. So to me, it's all about covering as much ground in that mid-morning period, you know, like 9 to noon or something like that. Because, and you know, Ray will tell you this, or Mark, or tell anybody else, you strike one that mid-morning time that hits you right back, your chances of seeing them are pretty good. So I just say cover more ground, be relentless, stay out there more.
So what's your favorite call to go strike with when you're running and gunning, you're covering a lot of spots? What's the one go-to that you start? And I'm sure maybe it's different if it's super windy out versus a calm day, but let's take those two scenarios. Calm day, you're running and gunning, you're out striking. What's your favorite call? Windy day, what's your go-to?
This is where I'm way different. And this goes back to filming turkeys and not just trying to kill turkeys, but you got to stop and think. Way back in the day when I was doing that stuff for Primos and all that, I was getting paid, not much, but I was getting paid to have turkey encounters, and sitting by the clover field for 3 hours ain't cutting it. A lot of reasons. I didn't have that much time. You don't know where they're going to pop up at. And I learned, I've been with so many people, you know, I'm talking about some of the greats, Dick Kirby and Will Primos and Eddie. So I've been with all those people, and everybody does it different. But this is what I settled on. And as far as locating and making a turkey gobble, me personally, if I can't make one gobble, I can't be patient. But once I hear him, then I can switch that gear and I can sit down. I know he's over there. So I use a tube call right out of the gate. And here's the normal routine for locating. Everybody does this, and everybody's successful. There's no absolutes. But you'll go with whoever, and they'll say we didn't get one at daylight. The lulls now, we'll wait until about 9. We're easing around, and they'll stop and crow, and then they'll owl, and they'll maybe yelp real loud. But at some point, if ain't nothing happening, they're going to end up with the loudest thing they got. Paddle box, slate, whatever it is. I always felt like, and again, this is just me, and don't do what I do. I always felt like those gobblers were hearing that the whole time. You know, they may be moving around, they're hearing light clucks and yelps and crows and all that. And the term shock gobble always meant something to me, so I want to shock him in the gobble. And I felt like that. I have raised so many turkeys. I have hundreds of stories. Now, the downsides to that, if he thinks you're a turkey, you better have a spot. So I don't walk through the woods, and I don't run to an open field and do it. I'm easing around like, okay, if I hear one, I can get right there. I mean, you got to have a method to your madness. But I always felt like the shot gobble was, that term means more to me. And yeah, people find them and kill them and do all that kind of stuff. I just needed, especially lugging back in the day, that giant equipment, I needed as many encounters to make one actually work on video. And that's just how I've always done it. And people are apprehensive. I've had guys tell me, "Don't be blowing that thing on my place." Gotcha. And the sad part of that is it sounds like a turkey. It ain't. The further away you get from it, the better it sounds. Yeah. But it's that excited. You don't do a long series. Most people out hoot so long, their turkey gobbles in between it. They don't hear it. But it's just a shot gobble. That's what I do. That's my go-to. I mean, I think I may have an owl hooter in my vest. Don't go to it very much in the mornings. I like to kind of let them get started, but my patience meter runs out pretty quick.
Sure.
And, so I want to have multiple encounters, and that's just the way I roll with it.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
Ray, how about you?
What do you want to know?
Well, it's just strategy at this time. Or maybe Cuz said it all.
Just like Cuz. Cuz said pretty much said it all. Yeah, I do just like that. Cover ground, move, and I always use a turkey call for locator. I don't use an owl or a crow. I always use a turkey call. I get a better response. Turkeys respond better to turkey calls than they do owls and crows. And I like to cut and yelp and move. I got a box call I turn over and cut on and yelp. Yep. And try to get one started, move and call. Just pretty much what Cuz was talking about. Same thing. That's how I do it too.
Let me explain to you the difference in a turkey hunter and a turkey killer. And I've seen it happen many, many, many times. I told you people are apprehensive about the tube call and all that. I went, and I can give you a couple of examples. I went with let's say Eddie Salter. I went with Eddie Salter in Alabama one time, who can cut on a mouth call as loud as anybody. And we were moving around doing this. We had some outdoor riders down there. And I was kind of filming Eddie, letting him do this thing. And we stopped in one particular spot, and he was busy doing something. So I said, Eddie, I'm going to cut. He said, okay. So I took that tube call out, and he'd done it once. Bat, bat, bat. Well, after that, and we didn't kill the turkey, but we got in there and had a little hunt. After that, when we'd stop, he would just turn around and look at me and go, cut at him. He didn't care. He didn't care. He made him gobble. He didn't care what I used to make him gobble. His was, let's get this guy a turkey.
Yep.
I've had that happen so many times. I went with our guy used to be our lieutenant governor, Eddie Briggs, just a turkey killing machine. And you know, and Ray, y'all have all experienced this, when you go with somebody that's big time turkey hunter, it's awkward. Who's going to yell? Who's going to howl? Who not? And I was letting him do his thing. And I found a turkey with that tube call after he'd been doing some stuff, and he grabs it and pulls it, and he wanted to know everything about it. Where can I get one? Do you have an extra one? That's a turkey killer. Yeah. He's just wanting to add it to his bag. And some people are like, I don't get that thing out.
I don't understand that. I mean, you've talked about that tube call for a long time, and it's been, I don't know. I don't know many people that use one, but when I think of it, I always think of you. You've obviously had a lot of success.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. Turkey hunters are an odd group of guys, aren't they? Because I went down this rabbit hole on social media the other day of kind of the purists, and man, they really, you know, they don't like, you know, say what you will, but they don't like reaping. They don't like decoys. They don't like this. They don't like that. And it's like, but you're using mouth calls. You're using box call. You know, you're using something that I don't know, man. It's like, who cares if you're killing? But that's also something they hate on. It's like, oh, just because you can don't mean you should. So I don't know. I put your tube call into that category.
You're right. And look, you got to be careful with rabbit holes you go down, because you know, I'll tell you a quick story. I was filming M.R. James, the guy who started Bow Hunter magazine, just a wonderful gentleman. And we were in Texas. He's trying to kill a deer on the ground with a bow. And I was like, ugh. Anyway, there was a guy, when we got to camp, there was a guy from way up north that had a recurve. And he just jumped all over M.R. James about, I can't believe you're shooting a compound bow, and you got sights, and you're the guy who started he just wearing him out, because this guy was traditional. And this, every night we would come in, it went on and on and on.
It's exhausting.
And finally, on this, like the fourth day, we were like this close to killing one on the ground. We were down there, Corpus Christi, the wind blows. I could see it happening. Mm-hmm. And I'm like right behind him with that giant camera, and I hear this rustling, and I look down, there's a blue indigo snake.
Yeah.
And they're like that. I don't do snakes. I jumped, and anyway, a little bit, I scared the deer also. Now, MR's turned around like, what happened? Now I'm in a bad mood. So we get back to camp, and Mr. Traditional Guy lights him up again. I can't tell you how disappointed I am. So, and I'm like as low key as it gets. I walked in, I got right up that guy. I said, let me ask you something. I said, you're from Michigan or wherever. I said, how'd you get here? Oh, I flew into corporate. Oh, so you flew on a jet, and you're wearing your binoculars, and you're in them Rocky boots. You should have made your own moccasins and walked down here. And by the way, just shut up. People that wear that kind of stuff on their sleeve, it's like, golly, man, it makes no sense to me.
Yep, I've seen it a million times.
You got a phone in your pocket and you're using all that.
Right.
You don't want to use the decoy. Hey, I always tell my grandkids, and they're young and they've learned, I say, you do you, and I'm going to do me, and we just going to hunt together. Mm-hmm. And it's not rocket science. There's not enough of us to go around. So you buy a license, you're on my team.
Well, I think we were talking to Ernie Calandrelli, and we asked him, like, what one piece of equipment would you outlaw? And he was like, pop-up lines. Pop-up blinds. And then I just saw a picture of him with a turkey in front of a pop-up blind. And his whole thing was like, do what you want to do.
He said pop-up blinds, but then we doubled down on it. He goes, "Oh no, I'm using them to kill them."
Yeah.
He's like, "I ain't as young as I once was."
and that's the thing with Liberty is you can choose, like if you're a traditional guy, you want to shoot an arrow that you built yourself out of an animal's bone, whatever, that's fine. But you don't have to create legislation to preclude me from using any other.
Some of us
options.
need all the help we can get.
Exactly. So here's a question I'm dying to hear you guys respond to, because I'm fascinated by the coloration of a turkey's head based on their mood. I feel like I'm still not quite there understanding what that means. So when you guys see a bird approaching, what are you looking for in terms of what that head looks like?
I'm looking for
Inside
putting
the
the
scope.
sights on it. I don't care what color he is if he's in range.
You know, what I see all the time, they'll talk about the red wattles and all
Yeah.
that. To me, of course, I live in the South and it's swampy, and that to me is the top white part right
Yeah.
there.
Top.
Almost it's electric when they're really fired up. You know, it's just like it's glowing. It's the only thing you can see out there.
it,
And
yeah.
It's like they're fluorescent. Now, is that because he's fired up? I doubt it, because I don't think, being engorged with blood will make your head whiter, but it makes those wattles. But that white stands out. That's all I look for. And I'm like Ray, I don't care what it looks like. if I'm lucky enough to get one close, but I'm not looking for, and my ears aren't what they used to be. So I'm listening with the tetras. I do good, but I'm looking for that white because it's almost electric.
Yeah.
When they're coming in.
All right.
So let's dive into a little bit of the history here. This is the part of the show that I've enjoyed, I think, the most of each of the episodes that we filmed. Just kind of diving back into, with you, I guess, got your break with Mr. Primo's filming, got hired to film the Truth videos. And, I don't know how you got hooked up with him originally, but maybe take us through some of that to begin with. We got Will on next week's episode, so maybe we could dive into something here that'll translate into that episode as well.
Yeah, well, it's all divine intervention. I was working at a sporting goods store in Natchez, Mississippi, and Will was at the time making the calls himself.
Mm-hmm.
He had a full-time job. All the Primoses were in the restaurant business. They had big ones downtown Jackson, and Will had a couple on his own, and that was 7 days a week, all day. And he was making the calls at night. Had one little press, and he was making the true double, and he also made a true triple, which that was like two hockey pucks stacked on top of the kitchen. I couldn't use that. But the true double, I liked it because I have a big palate because I have a giant head. I could use it. And so I was buying true doubles from him and selling them in the sporting goods store. And a buddy of mine named Gary Porter walked in, and he had bought the first camcorder that had come into Sears and Roebuck. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at that thing, and we were hunting buddies, all of us were. And I was like, I wonder if I could film a hunt with that. And because VHS was out now, and put it in the store and just let it run. Mm-hmm. So we did. We went out, and I still somewhere have the VHS tape of that first year. I found 10 or 15 kills, and they were like, it would make you seasick, and it was terrible quality. But I was sending the tapes to Will, and just because we were using a true double, like, check this out, because I just thought it was cool. And he literally called me one day, you gonna be at the store? Yeah, he shows up, and he's got this camera, and I wish I'd have taken a picture of it. There may be one somewhere, but he had bought it from a TV station in Jackson, WLBT. And this thing was gigantic, had a cable that hooked to a separate recording deck. The tapes were 3/4. I should have brought one up here. It was a lot of process just to get it on. And he asked me, you think you could film a hunt with that? And I'm looking at that going, man, I don't know. He didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how to use it. So we did a little test, and he paid me, listen to this, If I hunted with it all day, it was $10.06 a mile. So that's why I kept a log, because I was wanting to get my 6 cents a mile back. But I figured out how to turn it on and how to record and all that. So the next spring, I went to work for him, and it was a big gamble. Nobody had any money. His call business was tiny. I wish I'd have recorded the conversation I had with my wife saying,
Yeah.
"You're fixing to do what?" "Oh, I'm gonna film turkey hunts for a living." And I told this story, and so that's how I met Will. Now I'm working full time, and he's like, "Go hunting with your buddies, film some turkey hunts." And that's again why I was using the 2 call. But he actually came down the second weekend of our season, whatever year this was, 84, 3, somewhere in there. We went over to Glasscock Island, which is the famous hunt where the wide hits the turkey. It's a cult movie. The first hunt was the day before. And I told the story for the first time up at the WGF in my storytelling session. We were riding over there just to kind of look at the place, had everything in the truck, and go try to roost a turkey, and Will was doing his thing. And man, we made a turkey gobble like 3:30. And I was like, well, the stuff's there, let's go. And we did. We ran out there and set up on it. Turkey season opened last weekend. So anyway, this turkey comes in. There's a giant red oak tree that had blown down. It had been a bad storm on the weekend before, a big giant root ball. And the turkey's on the other side of it. And I'm straining with this new camera, trying to see it. And I can see its head every once in a while. Well, this turkey jumps up on the tree. All the way down the tree, turn around, all the way back, hops down, comes 20 more yards, bang. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. I just watched that. So and the only way you could watch it, we went back to the truck, is you had to rewind the tape in the tape deck and look through the viewfinder, which was that big around. Nothing. Never hit the record button. The stage on the camera, you turn the recording deck on, hit play and record, turn the camera on, hit record. The last thing I did not do. Will's looking at me going, and I know what he's thinking. I'm paying this guy full, and I was like, but you know what? I never did it again. Never happened again. But anyway, I shot all that spring. I think there's 12 hunts on it. And going through the edit process was crazy back then. Nothing was linear. You took the tape and you put it on a master tape through the edit process. So if you got down the line and didn't like something, you'd have to start all over. It was crazy. It took weeks to edit that first tape. The first tape I put in was the next day, Saturday, where he shoots the turkey real early. You can see the wad come out. And the edit guy's looking there and said, did you get a white balance? And I'm like, what's a white balance?
Sounds like a no.
He showed me how to white balance the camera the year after we shot this stuff, but it turned into a cult movie. And the bottom line is I couldn't. Will was in Jackson. I was in Natchez 3 hours, and he wanted me up there, and I couldn't. So I kind of went back to work in the sporting goods store. I couldn't keep that pace. I had little kids. And that's when I went to work for Toxie. He'd let me live in Natchez and sell Mossy Oak, which is another story. But little did anybody know that was going to turn into what it's turned into today. It's just crazy because there was nothing out there.
It's just crazy that Cuz is the common denominator between Will Primos and Toxie Hayes
and Mark Drury in a lot of senses.
Mark came down. I've told this to Matt before, but when Mark, he was still in college or just out, and he came down. He spent weeks with us. He wanted to know everything from packing and shipping to what does it look like on a sales call. He knew exactly what he was going to do at a very young age, and it was impressive. Clearly one of the best callers ever. I'm sure Ray called against him 100 times in those contests. I never did do that, but it was like, there's something going on here. We didn't know it was kind of birthing the whole turkey hunting thing. We just loved it. And people are astounded. And I'll be talking about Mark or Terry, something about the big deer, which I've said, y'all set that bar. But I was like, I can promise you this. I know Mark, anyway, if he's got one hunt left, it's going to be a turkey hunt. Nobody enjoys it as much as he does. And I got to see him when he was skinny and had them glasses. He was still, he was talented across the board, natural voice, whatever, building his own calls. It was fun to watch all that from like 30,000 feet looking down. Mm-hmm. And I guess I was the common denominator and was lucky to be in both those places. But that's how you learn. I got to tell you a Ray Eye story. Toxie called me in one day and he gives me this 45-minute spiel about PR. And he's talking about what Ben Rogers-Lee did and what Night and Hale did and how they used the PR to do this, because we didn't have ad money. And he said, "You're the guy." He said, "I can't do that." I said, "I'm in. What's PR stand for?" I didn't know what it stood for, but I know what he was talking about. So I find that there's an Outdoor Writers Association, OWAA. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I went to was in Marco Island, Florida. And I didn't know what I was doing, but the writers were coming by and I had my little table. And I kept asking them, who's the best PR guy you know? And this name kept coming up. It was Mike Finney, Berkeley Trilene. And I went and talked to him and he was like, "You need to do this and that and this and that." So I got pretty good at it. And then I hear this story about these. He had some big time outdoor writers, a bunch of them outdoor life, sports and field and stream. They went to a Ray-eyed turkey camp. And this guy says, we got there 2 days early and Ray's, doing everything. And he said, the first morning's the day before the season. He said, we go outside and we walk down the ridge like there, and they're up camping up there where they're going to hunt. Ray's got couches lined out facing the east where the sun's going to come out, got coffee out there. And them guys are sitting on those couches listening to the Missouri turkeys gobbling out there, and he's serving them coffee. And I heard that story and I hung my head and I was like, I'm not a PR guy. He just thought of that on his own. That's the kind of stuff that keeps you humble. When you think you're really good at something like that, and you hear the Ray Eye story, like, okay, I don't think I can top that. I just need to be a buddy and be a sponge. But that, to this day, I don't know of anybody that's been that creative. But that's what we did. We didn't have social media, and we didn't have it. It was outdoor press. They wrote about your stuff, took the pictures. Ray Eye figured it out. Him and Night and Hale and Ben Lee way before anybody else did.
So Ray, were you wanting them to visualize success? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I wanted them to enjoy the morning and hear the turkeys where they were going to hunt, because I wouldn't let anybody go in the area. We didn't drive in, we didn't walk in, but back up on top of the pasture, I'd put up the couches and serve coffee, and I gave them a little program to show them what they were going to listen to, and then I told them that concludes this morning's turkey gobbling, and we're going to go back to camp, so we had a big time with it. But that way they didn't go in and mess up the turkeys. They could hear the turkeys gobble, and we were set up on the top of the pastures where they could see the area that each one was going to hunt, but they could hear their turkeys, and we stayed long enough for the turkey to fly down and they could hear where he went and hear him gobbling down there, and then we left.
So how many turkeys, how many riders do you have in one of these camps?
At that camp, we had like 15.
So, how many turkeys? What kind of population are you talking?
Oh, it was incredible. And that day, oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. It was like the wave at a stadium when they start on a creek bottom and go down and come
hammering,
back.
Huh?
Unbelievable. Well, we had that particular spring, I think we killed 20 gobblers on that 2,000 acres there. We killed 20 gobblers. Everybody killed a turkey on opening day. Everybody. Every rider got a turkey on opening day. That don't happen.
No, I can't fathom it. Frankly, the population now, you're lucky to hear 4 or 5, in an area.
Yeah, but we did things differently. We didn't allow anybody in. When they hunted a particular area, then they didn't go back for 2 days. You let it rest. We called the turkeys, but we called to them from the roads. We didn't go into the areas. And we'd go in and hunt an area, and then we'd bring them out. But nobody was allowed to run and gun and go all over the place because we had so many people coming in, and it really worked out well.
What were some of the reactions like from the riders when they saw the couch sitting there?
Oh, they loved it. We did it later in the Ozarks. We put a couch on a river bluff over the Big Piney River with a beautiful view, and got to watch the sun come up. The turkeys gobbled it. They thought I'd lost my mind at first until they got on the couch. Then they liked it.
That's next level.
And you guys' experience when it comes to, say, a bluff like that, like, you know, it's 100, 150 yards up, and, you know, you got a river down below. Right. Do turkeys tend to roost on those types of like terrain, on that kind of terrain from like a safety perspective, or do you see them roosting on that kind of
on that bluff? No, they weren't on the bluff. We were on the bluff. The rivers below us, and there's bottom fields, and there's all these ridges, and the gobblers were all up and down the river on those ridges, on the points of those rivers, gobbling off on the river. So from the river bluff, you could hear them up and down the river.
Gotcha.
On both sides. You can hear some behind us, but they could also watch the turkeys fly off the ridge down into the field and start strutting with the hens. They could see the whole thing. Yeah. So we done that several times.
Asking for a friend, Matt?
Yeah. I was at the farm yesterday with Scott, and we were doing a little bit of shed hunting, and we were walking looking for turkey sign, because I know I just purchased a new piece of property in February, and it's 93 acres, and it was loaded with deer sign. But the very first day I looked at it, we bumped a bunch of turkeys, and up on this bluff, it's probably 150 feet drop down to a river, and it's there was just a lot of sign through this little patch of timber, and we were looking at it from a deer perspective. There's tons of scrapes and rubs and all that, but there was a lot of turkey sign. Well, the way this property kind of lays out, there's a south end where this is, and then the north end's like a kind of like old hay ground or whatever. And we just burned it. So I'm thinking, hey, there's going to be a lot of sign over here where we just burn this, burn the grasses and stuff. But we really didn't see much for sign. So we go back up to, we were shed hunting too. So we go back up to that bluff. We're seeing turkey feathers.
Yeah,
and,
they're roosting there.
All the leaves and stuff are kind of rustled up. And then we're walking, and I'm kind of walking the edge of this bluff, and a deer jumps up and takes off running. It was laying on the side, kind of protected there. It was laying on the side of it. It scared the crap out of me. And so I was like, well, it's so steep, I didn't go over there very far, but I was like, I'm going to tiptoe over here and see, what's going on. And I tiptoe over there, and all of a sudden there's all the turkeys. They're right there on the side walking, and I was 10 yards from them maybe. And so it was interesting to me that they were hanging out over there. And of course, I don't know enough about turkeys to know why there versus what was just burnt, where I thought they'd be picking through that grass and stuff. So it's
pretty flat down here. I'm not the bluff guy. I mean, it's where I live. You can stand on a pop can and watch your dog run off. really, really flat, right? You guys up there have terrain, and there's turkeys everywhere. Whatever the reason being, the population's down in pockets and stuff like that. Sure it is, but they're going to figure it out. I went to the turkey symposium that was in North Carolina, Asheville, and of course, Mike Chamberlain, all the scientists were there. I had my phone on thesaurus the whole time because those words were flying out like crazy. But I'm like, they're going to figure it out. We'll see what's going on. And there were some great points made about, trapping. And somebody asked me, is it the lack of trapping? Is it disease? Is it this? Is it that? And he just said, yes. They're working on all those to see why whatever's going on is going on. But I can promise you this. I just watched people sleeping on a sidewalk at the Mossy Oak store in 40-degree nights to get a fox vest. It was very humbling. And I told Toxie, I said, there may be lots of troubles down the road, but the wild turkey is in good shape. We're going to figure out. Yeah. Because you covet what you love, and people love it. We're going to figure out. And maybe we need to, net and relocate and all that. But I'm not personally worried about the future of the wild turkey. Lots of young people out there, 15, 19, 18, 20-year-olds, and their passion is no less glowing than ours was at that age. And that fires me up. So and I hate to say something as woke as wait on the science, but I'm just saying let's wait for all this leads to, because they're going to figure it out. And too many people love it.
dive into that. You touched on a topic there that I wanted to get into. The Mr. Fox turkey vest, a commemorative vest that Mossy Oak came out with. You guys launched a limited number. I think, what was there, like 600, 200 a day for 3 days that you guys did at the National Wild Turkey Federation convention. And then there was going to be a special in-person sale there at West Point, which is what you just alluded to. And then there was an online version. I was lucky enough to get one at the online version. So take us through what the inception of this vest was, what the meaning behind it was, because it's very special. It's near and dear, obviously, to everybody at Mossy Oak. And as you guys have come to find out, much more near and dear to the population as a whole than you probably could have ever imagined.
Yeah, it's we did the Bob Dixon vest, and this a couple of decades ago now, and we had a commemorative vest, and there wasn't a lot of hoopla around that one. Matter of fact, that you could get those at a dealer store, and we did 1,986 of them. That's when Mossy Oak started, and I actually got one. I loved the design. It was kind of revolutionary back then, and nobody's vest looked like that. Still got mine. Number 27.
Wow.
And I just had to, I just keep using it and repairing it, and using it and repairing it. So that's where the idea kind of came from. And I'm pretty sure it was Toxie's boys, Daniel and Neil, came up with the idea while they were duck hunting. Mr. Fox is 92, and his story is pretty epic. And they kind of kept it close to their chest. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but Daniel runs a lot of the marketing stuff. Neil works with him. And when I saw pictures of it, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. It's kind of like the Dixon vest, but it's way more classic. It's got leather and stuff on it. But anyway, they said, we're going to do it. And they worked really hard to make sure everybody had a chance to get one. There was a limited number of numbered vests, 1944. So I go to NWTF, and I don't know where they're at, or they're going to do 200 Thursday, 200 Friday. I'm minding my own business. My phone goes off at 4 a.m. Thursday morning, first day of the show. And one of my buddies, old Dale Bentley, he's in the line. He just sends me a picture of the line at 4 a.m. I'm like, you're kidding. So I got up and got dressed, went down there and made I was going all the way to the back of the line, all the way to the front with my phone, interviewing people. Why are you doing this? I did a TikTok that day. Don't tell nobody I got a TikTok.
He is woke. Wow.
72,000 views in 14 minutes.
Nice.
Wow. When I put that's insane. But anyway, they went from the first guy who I talked to, he had driven there from South Carolina. And listen to this. He got his voucher. He was the first guy in line. When he got his vest, he got back in his truck and drove home.
Wow.
Whoa.
Anyway, same thing the second day. 200 and 200. There's 400 gone now. We auctioned vest number one. The number one vest went to Mr. Fox. Number 2 went to Toxie. 3 and 4 went to the boys. So number 5's on auction that night at the auction. Went for $31,000. It had 10 one-of-one calls in it. And Daniel got up and said, this is why we're doing it, and this is where the money's going. And so many people couldn't get to the NWTF, so they did the one-day deal at West Point. And I forgot how many. I'm assuming the rest of them. At this point, Toxie ain't got one. I know Toxie's getting number 2. I don't have one. I ain't getting on the list.
Oh.
I'm looking at all these people lined up. Friday, early Friday, and they're there all night. They're going to be there all night. I went up to this lady who was sitting in a chair by herself, wrapped up in a blanket, and started talking to her. I said, why are you here? She said, I'm here for my son. He's pulling a double shift. He's like a cop or a fireman, I remember. And she said he couldn't go, and I told him I would do it. Drove from Dallas. So I said, give me your son's phone number. And she's there in line. So I call this dude, Bobby. Hello? I said, this is Cuz Strickland at Mossy Oak. Silence, freaked him out a little bit. I said, dude, I'm assuming you got the greatest mom.
Yes.
Man, now you could tell him getting a little emotional. He said, is this a trick? And I handed her the phone. And I had a 20-minute conversation with that guy about why he wanted a vest. And it was like, I told those boys in Toxie, I said, I don't know what's happened, but we will never see this again in our lifetime. And you saw some for sale on eBay. People were asking, they'd buy it and put it. You can't control that. And some people are just in that mindset. But I went down that line Friday and I talked to every single person that was in that line, and their stories were like, "Man, I grew up watching you guys. This is people want to be in the club.
Yeah.
You got to let them in the club and share as much as you can with them." And I saw some dude on TikTok saying, "Man, you people are stupid. It's just a vest and all that." Hey, if you don't get it, you don't get it.
Right.
But if you do, if you want one of them 1944 vests, whether you wear it and get turkey blood on it, or if you put it up, the fact that emotion is sparked at that level, to me, was humbling. And that's why I tell you, I'm not worried about turkeys. When you see people doing stuff like that, and people Matt's age, and it's like, we're in good hands. Everybody relax.
Yeah.
If you want to do something that's really meaningful, do two things: buy your hunting license every year, and just until we figure this out, shoot one turkey instead of 5, and just be a part of the solution, not a keyboard guy saying, "Boy, they don't do this and they don't do that." Well, you know what? There's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff to figure out why the populations are down a little bit, but no creature that's legal to hunt in the United States will ever be on the endangered species list.
Yeah.
I'm saying that here and now.
Amen. So what do the proceeds go to from the vest? That's the part I did not hear. I know it's going to help turkeys and, help fund the research and all that. Did they say where exactly it was going, or what organizations they were donating it to?
Yeah, they started a special gamekeeper something fund. That's where all the funds for the turkey stamp.
Yep.
All the Mossy Oak turkey stamp, everything's going into there. And Toxie and those boys, and I assume somebody else, is going to pick the projects that they go to, because there's a lot of them out there. There's one they're fixing to release the findings on pretty quick, and it's all about gobbling. They had these turkeys with some kind of telemetry on them where they could tell when they were gobbling and how much and all that. They're going to pick where that stuff goes to, but it's all research projects. Now, what percentage? A lot? I don't know. I didn't even ask. But I talked to Dr. Chamberlain about it. He's pretty excited, that we're doing this.
Yeah.
And everybody's getting involved. So it's that's fun. I love reading the research stuff because, you can talk to Ray I or Wilbur or Toxie, whoever wants. But when you start talking to people that are listening to them gobble on their computer screen through speakers that are in the woods, and they've got transmitters on them, that's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And, just like they did a study, I think it was in North Florida or South Georgia. They had, I don't know how many nests. They actually found them. They had like the college students find the eggs and all stuff, and they put video monitors on. And that one area, 100% of the nests were destroyed by nest predators. Not 8 out of 10. It was like 100%. And most of that was raccoons. That's why we just trap down here. And some people say, well, if you clear your place out pretty good, then they come back. Well, again, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
You're doing something. And so I've got a lot of faith. Toxie does too. And Toxie's always been like that. He's never been that upfront guy, put me on television and all that. He's always been about the critters and the habitat. And watching his boys put this together, and Daniel did the turkey stamp thing on his own. It makes him very proud. It makes me proud, because I'm getting to see that, because all that research takes money.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to pay for all that stuff. And I feel like they will pick the right projects. That's my guess.
Yeah. We had a video that I think we used it on a Real Wild clip of, a year or so back or whenever it was. Our social team found this video where a guy had set up a video trail camera on a nest, and this hen was sitting on her nest, and kept coming in trying to get to those eggs, and she fought this thing off I mean, and it was a time lapse. What we saw was a time lapse of her continuing to fight this raccoon off. And finally, you know, the weeks passed by or whatever, and the poults hatched, and, you know, several survived. And it was a very cool, one of the coolest time lapses, one of the coolest trail camera videos I've ever seen.
Kind of gave you a better appreciation for what they're up against, because even though like it seemed like it had a happy ending, she still got to protect the poults because they're still they're still
Job's not
vulnerable.
done.
Yeah, exactly. I
Trapping, you know, the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, the golden time for Ray Eye and all those people, the pelts wars. Well, not many people are doing it now, and it can be a controversial subject. It's not to me, because it's just like burning or food plots. It's just part of the big plan.
Yeah.
And the more people we can get interested in that, but if you don't do anything but buy 4 DP coon traps and put them out in your backyard, it's like, hey, let's do this, you know, because they're going unchecked.
Yeah.
Unlike the turkeys and the deer and the elk and the waterfowl, that those predators are going unchecked. And again, I believe the sportsmen and sportswomen, whoever, they'll figure it out. South Dakota's got a bounty on them right now. Mississippi's talking about it. And boy, you get that started back. That's what I say. I think it'll work itself out. I had a kid send me a picture today. I don't know that I can get it up there real quick. His trail camera caught coyotes. Let's see if I can get that up there. Attacking a longbeard.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the next picture is a coyote walking off with a beard in its mouth.
Oh man.
It's goes to show you what a tough time they had. Now, coyotes ain't a big part of the nest issues, but they're a part. And you can't just let stuff go unchecked. With all encroachment comes responsibility. And people just have to understand you can't just let everything run wild. Nature will fix it at some point through a disease, but turkey hunters are a unique crowd. They'll kind of pitch in. So I feel pretty good about it. So.
Very good.
I'm curious. You guys think back over your years together, if you can recall your first impressions of each other, you and Cuz.
I got a good one on Ray. He was in a calling contest, and he was up there, and it was Denny Gullis and all these guys from back in the day who I could never sound like that on no matter what. I just couldn't. It just wouldn't. And Ray, out of all those guys, and it was way competitive back then. A lot of secrecy. Paul Butsky, Dick Kirby, them guys were serious about it. And I saw Ray at a contest, and I think it was in St. Louis in conjunction with a giant boat show or something like that. And he was always smiling. I said, he's approachable. So I went up to him and visited with him for about 20 minutes. And the other guys were like, it was kind of like being in the dugout at a major league game. There were some game faces. Ray was the most approachable celebrity caller that I ever ran across. That was my first impression of Ray Eye.
Nice. Think he's still
You handsome devil, you. My first impression of Ron Cuz Strickland, great guy, turkey hunting brother. I could just talk to him 5 minutes and knew the love he had for the outdoors and for the wild turkey and for hunting, and you can't help but like this guy. I mean, his personality, that smile. There's that smile. See it? That smile right there. That Ronnie Cuz Strickland. Liked him from the first time I met him. And that's been many years ago. Back. I remember one time you went into Dunn's catalog place when Brian Rama worked there, and you and him had talked about me, and Brian was talking about you, and I told Brian, I said, that's a good man right there, Ronnie Cuz Strickland. They don't get any better than that guy right there.
Well, you're too kind. I wish I could give you my home phone so you could call my wife. The people that are still around and still relevant are nice people. You know, it doesn't take any more energy to be nice.
That's true.
Ray's a listener. He's accepted technology. Matt and I have had this conversation a couple of times. You got to embrace some of that, or you're just going to get left behind.
Right.
If you get left behind, you can't add anything. And being relevant to my grandkids on whether it's Instagram or whatever it is a big deal. They think the podcast is kind of cool. I just did a whole podcast with my 10-year-old, Cranky, and it's getting more downloads than anything I've ever seen.
I love it. That's awesome.
The comments are crazy. It's like, I listened to that young man say yes, sir, and no, sir, and he said it made my day. The comments are just unbelievable. And we just had a conversation. I asked him about turkey hunting and trapping and girls and all kinds of stuff. I think people are just kind of ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a unique little fella. He'll say what's on his mind. He gets that from my wife, I think. He has the thought is coming out. I feel good about things and not feel bad. So that's kind of what we concentrate on.
Ray, you mentioned for your first impression of Cuz, and I've met Cuz a few times, always super gracious, always really generous with his time. But if you watch any of his pictures on Instagram or social or anywhere, he's always pointing to the other person. And I think this is part of who Cuz is that because you seem to be so humble and so interested and concerned about and for other people. And I think, like, obviously if you're in the hunting industry, you can hunt, like you can kill deer, you can kill turkey. A lot of people can do that sometimes, but to be focused on people and genuinely care for them and to care about the animals that we chase, that's just a different level. Like that requires being a good, like having a good heart. It's not enough just to have the business acumen or to figure out what PR means. You have to have a good heart at the end of the day to end up being successful.
Well, you're too kind. And I did a talk at the NWTF. I'm like, Ray may be the only guy on the planet still breathing that's done more seminars than I have. I would guess it's in the tens of thousands. But I used to look out across that crowd, and I knew immediately. Half of them people knew as much as I did, and the other half knew more. So if they're going to give me an hour, I'm going to entertain them.
Yes, sir.
That's why they're there. They're there to be entertained. That's why 20 years ago, I started taking pictures. I'd say, hey, this picture's not about me. It's about you. Everybody's got a story. And some of the stories are great. I wrote a chapter in one of those books I wrote called The Turkey Man. And I was doing a seminar and I think it was Kentucky. I don't remember. And it was a packed house. It was a big event. And I saw this guy come in the back, old coveralls on. Anyway, I just noticed him a lot. We got through, I was signing hats and doing all this stuff, and he was still back there. And he walked up very quietly and said, hey, I don't keep up with all this kind of stuff. I read one of your books, and I really like it, and I wanted to shake your hand. And was walking outside, went to his truck. It was like a old 63 Ford, red, beat up. And anyway, I heard his story. I stayed with him for an hour. This guy forgot more about turkeys than I would ever, ever, ever know. Lost his wife early, lived in a cabin up in the mountains, followed turkeys every day. Should have done a documentary about him, but I was like, if I can't teach people what he knows, but I can entertain them and maybe tell stories about him, because if you just I feel like it's a responsibility. People are tired of the news and all that. If they come to something like that, they don't want any. Hey, I know how to do this, and I know how to kill a big tom and all that. Everybody knows how to do that. I mean, with YouTube, you can figure out anything. And so I just think it's kind of a dying art. That's why admiration for people like Ray, now Terry and Mike. Terry and Mark aren't quite as old as I am, but that storytelling is a big deal. I really think it is. And turkey hunting, like Will said this many decades ago, he said turkey hunting is a cult. Yeah. Everybody knows everybody.
And everybody knows everything.
Yeah, that's right. So our buddy Tony checked in, and he's got this week's question of the day.
All right. So the question of the day is proudly presented by Cold Steel Knives, professional hunting knives for real hunters. Get the click and cut hunter model with 3 interchangeable blades for everything your spring turkey hunt throws at you. All right, Tony, let's see what you got.
Hi, my name is Tony, and I'm from Searcy, Arkansas. My question is this: can a tom identify each hen by her calls? And can he pick up on a hunter's call when he uses a mouth call, maybe hunting that bird for a while, and the hunter shoot and miss, could he recognize that call again by that same hunter? Thank you.
This seems very specific.
Hypothetically.
For a friend I know. For a guy named Shoney.
Anthony wants to know.
Until you can get in their brain and talk to them, nobody's going to ever know that. I go back to the rubber band theory. I think the longer a turkey goes in between gobbles and breeding, that rubber band's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And the tighter that rubber band gets, the more he's willing to listen to whatever it is. Do they have the ability to reason between this yelp and that yelp? I actually have no idea. Some of the coolest hunts I ever videoed were for some of the worst callers you've ever heard. But the turkey was responding to it. And I personally love that because I kind of fall into the category of not being very high. So I was always pulling for them guys. Man, get that yelp out. You can do it. So I don't think they have the capability of reasoning between that. They might. Tom Kelly would certainly say they do. You know, he's talking about a turkey coming down a hill. He was up behind this old guy's farm, and the turkey came down the hill by where the garden was and turned. He was coming right down by that fence and stopped and looked down and then took off running. He went down there, and the farmer's corncob pipe was laying in the and I was like, come on, man. So a lot of it's the lore. You know, the calling part is the mystique. Yeah. That's the big mystique. That's why it's fascinating to listen to Ray I and Chris Kirby and Dave Owens or whoever you're listening to, because it sounds so good. But I'm telling you, it makes very little difference, in my opinion. 90% woodsmanship. I tell people all the time, all right, whatever your time you have to dedicate to this, that's 100%, whether it's one day or 1 week or 1 month. Take 90% of that and find turkeys and get permission to hunt spots. 10% calling, all that kind of stuff. If you find turkeys and you get them, you'll figure that other stuff out. 90% of your time securing the place to do it. I think that's the best advice you can give somebody.
I don't tell Tony. I don't believe that gobbler, because he called a turkey with a mouth call and shot, that gobbler relates that to danger. I find that hard to believe. Yes and no on that. There is certain things that happen, like for instance, on a media hunt with an outdoor rider, there was a hen that sounded terrible. She was really squeaky, and she'd miss her yelps, and every time she'd open her mouth, everybody'd gobble and run in to her on this ridge. So I took Mark LaBarber in on that hunt up there, and I got in there, and I went in that evening, and I roosted her, and I flushed her off. And the next morning, we were right there on the ridge where she always called, and I took a corncob slate and squeaky yelped it. Man, they attacked us. We got a bird like bam. Right away, trying to sound like her, something that they were familiar with. Whether you could do, the gobbler's going to know if I call on a mouth call that I better not use it the next day because they'll know I'm there. I've had people tell me that and all that, but I don't believe that. But there is a certain part of that is true, because she sounded terrible and I imitated what she did, but I was in the same spot she was every day that they were going to. So that probably had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, good question.
Just one additional level of turkey hunting that I will never attain to.
Oh, the terrible calling I could get to pretty quickly. Just tell me where she was at.
Imitating a specific bird? That's something.
I've flushed a lot of hens over the years. I'd have a hen go into a gobbler, and I'd go up and go down there and flush her off, and then I'd go right where she was at and just start calling, and I'd end up killing the bird.
Man.
Yeah.
That's actually in my story time.
Well, speaking of.
Yeah, I got a story time.
Let's go for it.
I couldn't help but think. I was on the way in here today, and I thought about old Francis. Back in the 70s, we ran a hunting camp, guided hunts in the Ozarks. At that time, it was Clark National Forest. Had a group of guides, and we'd hunted people. And we had a guy come in named Francis, and boy, he was a mess. Coke bottle glasses, come in, he knew everything. And the guides were like, so I got elected to take him on the hunt. And he pulled a shotgun. He went to Dennis Sporting Goods and bought a brand new shotgun. And he pulled it out of the box, and he still had a tag and everything on it. Turned it over, and he walks up and he says, "Where does the bullets go?"
Oh boy.
I said, well, the bullets go in my pocket. I'll give them to you one at a time as you need them. So then we went up on the ridge to go hunt the next morning. All the guys, they wanted nothing to do with this guy. And we got up on it, and I said, and I'd scouted the area. We're going to stay here for a minute and let him gobble a little bit. And I waited, and what did I? And pow, he gobbled. He tapped me on the shoulder, leans up and says, is that a boy turkey or a girl turkey? And I said, well, there's a boy turkey. We're going to go hunt him. So anyway, I'm going to shorten this thing up. So we go down and around. He's making all kinds of noise. He's breaking limbs, sticks, dragging his feet. I said, stop. I said, I'm going to show you something. I said, you see those little black pellets on the ground right there? You see those little heart-shaped little tracks right there? Them's ridge gators. Ridge gators live in the Ozarks. And if you keep making noise like that, if you ever sit on one, it'll be like sitting on a blender. They're going to come and eat you because they think you're food.
Sitting on a blender.
Yeah, so you got to be quiet. Boy, he's back there. He's tiptoeing around.
I don't want that.
We get up on a hill, and I caught, and then turkey gobbles down in the old fields by my grandpa's old farm, and I hear a hen yelping. And I said, come on, we got to go. Down the hill, I run there, cut that hen off, got him set down at a tree at the edge of the field, and his glasses were steamed up. I had to take his glasses and wipe them off. I put them back on him. I said, get your gun up. Boy, he was drawing circles. He's sitting there, and the turkey, go. You can see the fan coming. And he goes, he can't make this up. He goes, can I have my bullets? So I take his gun. I put his bullets in his gun, right? And I give it back to him. I load it, and I said, get ready. He come up. It was beautiful, Pop, 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 pow, pow, pow. I said, shoot him, boom. Flies in the air, shoot him, boom. Flies up his helicopter and shoot him, boom. Third shot like that. Turkey goes like this and goes over to the right and flies over into the field, hits the field and rolls, runs onto the fence and takes off. I said, go get him. Well, his legs were asleep. When I got him up, I went and pushed him, and he's trying to catch up with himself, and he falls down, gets up, he runs over, runs into the fence, rips his shirt, throws his gun over the fence, and goes out of sight. What? So I pick up my stuff, and I go, well, I better get over there. And I don't see him. And I get over, and I look way down the corner of the field down there by the old home place, by the old smokehouse. In the corner, there's a hog wire fence comes together, and I see him down there in the corner. So I take off running down there. I get down there to the corner, and there's a turkey sitting there on the ground with his head up going, and there's Francis, tore, scratch face, no hat, got his gun up, bolts open, he's pointing it at the turkey, he's going, and I look at him, he goes, get over here, I'm out of bullets, but that damn turkey don't know it.
Like he had him hostage situation.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that was a good one.
It's an Ozark standoff. Jeez.
Well, cuz you've been a part of one of our longer episodes, but we got 2 Communicator of the Year guys here. What do you expect?
It's going to happen.
People love them stories. I'm just telling you, and I appreciate being a small part. I'm fixing to go do an opening for this Tuesday's podcast. I'm gonna plug this event. I'll make sure everybody's watching it and taking part in that. But hey, communication's a big deal. Knowledge is power, and it's like I say all the time. The youngsters have learned how to do it. They're not necessarily looking for tactics and techniques and all that. They're looking for membership into the club.
Yep.
They want to be that. They want to be Tom Kelly's nephew. They want to be Mark Curry's best buddy, and we just got to let them in the club. And so that's my rant for the podcast. Is we need to just let them in the club and don't get all offended if they use a decoy or TSS, a pop-up blind or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what? I guess we're old because we sure think a lot alike, cuz.
Well, that's why you're still around. You embraced it, and that's what older people are supposed to do. They're supposed to bring them on, show them how to do it, keep them from getting their nose bloodied, and have fun. Stay in your lane and know your role, and tell them good stories because they love it.
Well, we've heard several here today. We appreciate it, guys. You guys have, this is why we've done the series, to kind of dive into this stuff. So
yeah. So next week is Mr. Will Primos.
The finale of our series here, 6 episodes in total. This is number 5 in the series. Number 6 is next week with Mr. Primos, and I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah.
It'd be great.
Yeah. Look forward to diving into, I think he was on King of the Spring with Mark and Terry, and I think Mark was on The Truth 2 maybe, and all kinds of history there with Cuz and Mossy Oak that we can dive into. So looking forward to it.
Hey, one more thing. Love you, brother.
Love you too. I love all you guys. I appreciate you making me a part. And look, when you get Wilbur on there, make him talk about his diet and what he used to bring to my house when, you know, he's always been a real health food nut. Make him explain what was in that plastic milk jug he used to bring. I used to say it was pine cones and pea gravel, but maybe he'll tell you what he eats on a normal.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I think we're going to close down shop for this week and look forward to next week's episode. Everybody out there that's out there turkey hunting, be safe, identify your targets.
And be sure to subscribe to the Fistful of Dirt podcast if you don't already.
Yeah, because where all can they find you?
Oh, you know, it's Apple. It's on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere. And here's the deal. I get a lot of old guys on Facebook. You know, older people use Facebook, and they're like, I'll put a post up about it. Where do I get it? And I have a copy and paste answer that I can send to them, which starts like, find your grandchild and hand them the phone. And if you ain't got that close by, I said, you can just Google it.
Yeah.
You can Google a Fistful of Dirt pocket. You can listen on your laptop. But I always tell them, find a youngster, hand them the phone, tell them what you want. It'll take 5 seconds. So.
You're a smart man.
We'll link it in the show notes to make it easy for folks. But thank you, cuz.
All right. Well, I think we're going to shut it down. Until next time, peace out.
See ya.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.